The first sound I heard was the thundering bang that jolted me upright in bed, rattling the frame like an earthquake. My clock glared 2:03 a.m., red digits burning into my sleepy eyes. For a split second, I thought it was a dream, until another blow cracked against the wood of my front door, loud and sharp, echoing through the quiet night like gunfire. My heart slammed in my chest as adrenaline shot through me. Then came the screech, high-pitched and venomous, a voice I knew all too well. "Open this door. You think you're above the HOA, not on my watch." It was Karen, the infamous HOA president who had spent the last year tormenting everyone on our street with fines, threats, and constant surveillance. She had written me up for leaving my porch light on too long, for mowing my lawn at the wrong hour, even for parking my truck too close to the curb. But this was new. She was standing on my porch in the dead of night, pounding her heel into my door like she was delivering a warrant. Except she wasn't law enforcement. She was nothing but a tyrant hiding behind a homeowners association badge she'd practically crowned herself with. Another crash shook the door. My dogs stirred before I could even rise, their growls low and rumbling like a warning siren. Max, a German shepherd I'd trained during my years in the service, was already at the door, ears flat, muscles taut. Beside him, Bella, my Belgian Malinois, bared her teeth, her hackles raised like a storm cloud. Together, they were a wall of fury waiting for my command. Karen didn't know the line she had just crossed. I stepped into the living room, flipping on the porch camera feed with a single swipe of my phone. The screen lit up with the sight of Karen in her bathrobe, hair wild, face red and twisted with arrogance, pounding on my door with both fists now, as if trying to break into a fortress. My stomach churned with disgust. "Unstable," I muttered under my breath. Then, louder, through the locked door. "Karen, it's 2 a.m. You're trespassing. Leave now before you regret it." Her reply was a screeching laugh. "You think your dogs scare me? They're just mutts. This neighborhood has rules, and I enforce them. You'll learn your place tonight." That was it. I snapped the leash clips off both collars and gave a single word. "Guard." The door thudded again, and in the same heartbeat, I unlocked it and yanked it open. Karen's leg, mid-swing for another kick, froze in the air as 2 shadows lunged forward with a guttural snarl. Max and Bella leapt, their fangs inches from her robe as she screamed, stumbling backward, arms flailing. She crashed onto the walkway, the echo of her shriek waking lights across the cul-de-sac. Curtains fluttered open. Neighbors peeked out. Phones started recording. And there was Karen, the queen of control, scrambling on her backside across my lawn like a burglar caught in the act. "Call them off," she shrieked, voice cracking under the weight of her own terror. But I didn't need to. Max and Bella stood at the edge of the walkway, growling, eyes locked on her, a living wall between me and her madness. They hadn't touched her, they didn't need to. The fear dripping from her was enough. And then, the twist that broke the silence of the night came from the house across the street. Mr. Nolan, a retired police K9 handler who'd kept quiet through Karen's reign of terror, stepped out with his cane. His old service dog, Rex, padded beside him, grizzled but proud. "I saw it all," Nolan shouted into the night. "You tried to break his door down, Karen. That's a felony, not a bylaw violation." His voice carried the weight of years of authority, and suddenly, neighbors spilled out onto their porches, some clapping, some jeering. Karen scrambled to her feet, trying to summon her usual authority, but her words faltered. He threatened me with those animals. I was just checking a violation." Nolan cut her off with a laugh that held no warmth. "At 2 a.m.? You're lucky those animals didn't tear you apart. You're the threat here." He raised his phone high, camera light glowing. "And I've got proof." By the time the sheriff's cruiser pulled up, neighbors had already called Karen was a spectacle, her robe dirty, her hair matted with sweat, her face twisted in desperation. The deputies didn't even need to ask. They had half a dozen videos of her assault on my door, her shrieks about HOA rules, and her collapse when my K9s stood their ground. As the deputies cuffed her, she wailed, "You can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president. I have power." The crowd erupted in laughter, jeers filling the night air like a verdict delivered by the people. One neighbor shouted, "Your power just got revoked." Another added, "Hope the jail has bylaws you can enforce." And as she was shoved into the back of the cruiser, Max and Bella sat proudly at my side, their tongues lolling, their eyes bright with victory. For the first time in months, I felt free. The street stayed alive long after the patrol car hauled Karen away, neighbors buzzing like bees shaken from a hive. Some hugged me, others patted Max and Bella like they were the true heroes, but all shared the same stunned realization: Karen's iron grip had finally snapped. For the first time in years, people weren't whispering in fear. They were talking loudly, laughing even, their voices untangled from her shadow. I stood in the middle of it all, a strange calm settling over me, as if my dogs had chased not just her, but the fear she carried out of the neighborhood. The following days brought a storm of consequences. Word spread fast, videos uploaded that very night racked up views in the millions. News stations parked their vans at the end of the block, and reporters begged for interviews. The footage was undeniable. A woman in a bathrobe at 2 in the morning, hammering her foot against a veteran's door, while 2 K9s kept her from breaking in. And the sound bites were damning. Her shrieks about enforcing rules sounded less like leadership and more like lunacy. Karen, predictably, tried to spin it. From jail, she demanded her lawyer argue that she was simply investigating a violation. But when the prosecutor played the videos in court, the jury didn't hear investigation, they heard obsession. The charge wasn't light either: attempted unlawful entry, harassment, and disturbing the peace. The federal charge of trespass against a service-connected veteran's residence was the nail in her coffin. The trial became a spectacle. Neighbors filled the courtroom, each waiting their turn to testify. Jessica, the young mom, recounted how Karen had once threatened to call Child Protective Services because her son's toys were left outside. Mr. Nolan testified about seeing her cross property lines, measuring tape in hand, trespassing like she owned the street. Others stood and spoke about the endless fines, the intimidation, the humiliation she had rained down like acid. Every voice cracked her facade wider until it lay in pieces. Then came the most unexpected twist of all. When it was my turn to testify, I brought Max and Bella into the courtroom. The judge allowed it after hearing they were certified service K9s. The dogs sat obediently by my side, calm and dignified, as I explained how they had served in my recovery from the nightmares of combat, how their loyalty had been my anchor in the storms Karen tried to create. And then I looked straight at her, my voice steady but loud enough to fill the room. These dogs showed more discipline, more respect, and more honor in one night than you've shown this entire community in all your years of power. They didn't bite you, Karen. They protected me. Because that's what loyalty looks like. The courtroom fell silent, the kind of silence that feels like judgment before the gavel drops. Karen looked away, her face pale, her arrogance dissolved into something pathetic. The judge's ruling followed swiftly, guilty on all counts. Her sentence was 6 months in county jail, fines exceeding $20,000, and removal from any HOA leadership for life. But the true punishment wasn't the sentence seat, was the way every neighbor turned their back when she was escorted out. The aftermath was nothing short of transformation. The HOA board resigned en masse, unwilling to defend what had become indefensible. In its place, neighbors formed a community council, voluntary, transparent, built on cooperation rather than control. The first act was symbolic. They voted to eliminate all petty fines and replace them with a simple code of respect. No more punishment for lawn heights, no more threats over porch lights. Instead, neighbors agreed to help each other, to share tools, to host cleanup days rather than issuing penalties. At the first council meeting, held in my yard, Max and Bella lay on the grass, tails wagging as kids ran by. Mr. Nolan spoke with pride, his old K9 Rex at his feet. Jessica organized a neighborhood barbecue, the kind Karen had once banned. And Deputy Ramirez attended too, off-duty this time, smiling as he watched a community rebuild itself on trust instead of fear. The flag I raised that day waved high above us, its colors bright against the blue sky. It wasn't just my flag, Anna Marie. It belonged to everyone who had stood up, spoken out, and broken free. For once, it felt like a neighborhood instead of a battlefield. Weeks later, when the news cycle moved on and the cameras left, people still stopped me at the grocery store or the gas station to say, thank you. They weren't just thanking Methy, were thanking Max, Bella, and every neighbor who chose courage over silence. Karen's name became a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. Rumor had it she tried to join another HOA in a different town, but was swiftly rejected, her reputation now a permanent scar. And though part of me pitied her, a larger part hoped she finally learned that fear is no substitute for respect. As for me, I still wake up sometimes to the memory of that pounding at my door. But when I do, I roll over, see Max and Bella curled at the foot of my bed, and smile. Because I know that night didn't just protect, might freed all of us. So here's my question to you. When someone like Karen abuses power and crosses every line of decency, what's the true justice, her punishment in court, or the way a community rises stronger than her reign ever allowed? Right or wrong, I know this much. No one will ever kick down this door again.